Welcome back everybody to another video. Today we're going to talk about all different types of bikes and how to know what the right bike is for you. When we talk about bikes, I think we can split them into three main categories. We've got road bikes, mountain bikes, and gravel bikes. Let's talk about them. If you're looking for a fast bike to ride on smooth surfaces, whether it's down to the beach or up in the hills, you might be looking for a racing road bike. If you're looking for a extreme off-road, doing jumps and wheelies and skids, you might be looking at a mountain bike. If you're looking to marry those two together, you might be talking about a gravel bike, which is capable of doing a little bit of road riding and a little bit of mountain biking, a perfect blend of the two. Talking about road bikes, we can split them into three main categories. We've got the comfortable endurance style of bike, we've got the aerodynamic racing bike, and then we've got the lightweight climbing bike. Let's talk about this bike first. This bike is perfect for someone who wants to ride up in the hills, who's fighting against gravity going up the nice steep hills, who wants a nice easy bike that can come back down the hill as well, and a really, just again, a lightweight climbing bike. This is perfect for you. Some of the things that make this bike nice and lightweight are the lightweight high-end carbon fiber frame. This example has the carbon fiber wheels and the high-end premium group set as well, the electronic gears. This particular example here has rim brakes, although we can often find them in disc brake as well. But again, this one is designed to be a lightweight climbing bike. Some popular brands that you might see might be this one here, Cervelo. You might find S-Works, which is made by Specialized. You might find Giant, they make one called the TCR. There's lots of different brands out there. Most brands of bike will have a lightweight category. This one here is an aerodynamic racing bike. This is for the person that wants the supercar equivalent of a push bike. Things like the aerodynamic frame, things like the deep dish wheels, things like the hidden brake calipers. All these things here with the premium gears, they all add up to a nice fast bike. This bike is perfect for someone who's happy to sacrifice a little bit of comfort for that ultimate performance. If you're sprinting into the finish line at your race, this is the closest thing you can get to cheating. And the third main category is the endurance style of bike. This is perfect for someone who wants a really comfortable bike. Maybe they're riding to and from work, maybe they're riding on rougher roads, maybe they've got some aching pains or that sort of thing, or even just need to sit a little bit more upright so they're not as leant over. This is the perfect bike for you. Some things like the taller head tube, so that the handlebars are taller, things like the thicker tires, things like the more compliant frame. We can see in this particular example that we have a dropped seat stay. So the frame comes along here, drops down, and then goes down here again. So that will just allow the frame to flex a little bit more. But this bike is more around comfort. It's not the fastest thing you'll ride, it's not the most lightweight thing you'll ride, but it's the most comfortable that you'll ride. When talking about mountain bikes, beginning with an entry-level mountain bike, I would typically be describing a hardtail. When I say hardtail, I mean we have suspension on the front wheel, but no suspension on the back wheel. These bikes are great from a budget side of things. They're a very common first mountain bike that a lot of people will get. They're not too complicated when it comes to servicing as well. They're a really good spot to start. They're great to hone in your skills, and they're a jack of all trades type of bike. If you're looking at more advanced mountain biking, you might be looking at a dual suspension mountain bike. When we say dual suspension, as the name would pretty clearly state, we're talking about suspension on the front wheel and on the back wheel. Dual suspension for both wheels. When looking at a dual suspension bike, I tend to describe them as a bit of a spectrum. On one side of the spectrum, we can have lightweight, cross-country, wearing your Lycra, going up the hill really quickly. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we can look more at the downhill and the doing big jumps and long suspension travel and all this sort of stuff. Here we've got two examples. We've got a relatively extreme cross-country bike, again, slightly shorter suspension travel, a nice wide gear ratio, skinnier tires, carbon fiber, nice and lightweight. This is a very fast bike to go up the hill. A lot of people riding this bike might even choose to wear Lycra. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, we can look a little bit more like this Scott Ransom here. This one has much longer suspension travel, even just the stanchions are quite a bit thicker. We've got bigger, fatter tires, more powerful brakes, big, strong aluminum frame. This bike wants to be ridden hard. It wants to do the jumps and the skids and the ducking and weaving through trees. This is more on the aggressive downhill side, although I would describe this as being an enduro bike. Another type of mountain bike we can talk about are dirt jumpers. Dirt jumpers can also be seen at the skate park as well. They're similar to a BMX, but with bigger wheels, and often they'll have a suspension fork as well. Not always, but often. A very low seat height. They often have a single gear as well, so you don't have a derailleur or a chain bouncing around. They're really good if you're messing around at the skate park and the dirt jumps, and they're almost impossible to break. When talking about gravel bikes, they come under quite a large umbrella. I think we can split them into a few main subcategories, being cyclocross racing, adventure, and then bike packing. Let's have a look at them. When looking at a cyclocross racing bike, we'll often see carbon fiber, we'll often see carbon wheels perhaps, maybe the electric gears, and usually relatively skinny tires. The reason for this is we want the fastest bike that can get around the racetrack. Perhaps you're pinning on a number or even just messing around through the parklands and trying to have a lot of fun. A cyclocross racing bike will be the fastest type of gravel bike you can get. An adventure bike will often have either a carbon or perhaps an aluminium frame. This particular one here is aluminium. As well as that, we'll usually find a few more frame mounts. This one has room for either a water bottle or perhaps a frame bag on the top. It's got slightly wider tires than what come on the racing bike. It's got a bit more of an upright position as well. We can see that the drop from the seat to the handlebar is relatively high. This particular example here has a little bit of suspension built into the head tube as well. So a very comfortable ride. This is the sort of thing you could spend the whole day riding and you wouldn't feel super worn out at the end like you would on a cyclocross race bike. It's worth noting that all of these different types of bicycle also have electric options. Having an electric bike will help just take a little bit of load off. If you need a bit of assistance going up the really steep hill, or if you just want to take a little bit of a load off and just make the whole ride more enjoyable and less strenuous, an electric bike might be able to help. Even I have an electric mountain bike. I love my electric mountain bike because even if I don't have enough time to go for a proper bike ride, I can still get lots of riding in and do lots of runs of the tracks as well. It just helps take a little bit of a load off to make it a little bit more enjoyable for me. Once you've decided on what type of bike you want to go for, whether it's road bike, mountain bike, or gravel bike, it's important to work out what size we need. Size is important from a safety aspect as well. Things like if you're standing at the traffic lights, you don't want to be sitting on this top tube, or the length might be too long and you can't reach it, or the length might be too short and your knees hit the handlebar. There's so many important things. A rule of thumb size guide can be found on our website as well. We've got a little photo of what it looks like here, but that's just a size guide. It's not the Bible, but it gives you a bit of an idea of where to look. When we're sizing you up for a new bike, there's a couple of key things we look at. Top tube height is one thing. Seat height when you're riding the bike is another thing, and then the reach from your butt to your hands. We're talking about the distance from there. Talking about the top tube size, if I was to stand over this 58 centimeter frame, I typically say if you can grab the stem and the saddle, you want to be able to lift the bike off the floor a little bit. You don't want to be able to lift it too high because then the frame would be too small, but you also don't want to be sitting down on the top tube unable to raise it. So just a little bit of height will just make it nice and comfortable if you're stopping at the traffic lights or anything along those lines as well. That's before talking about seat height. When we're talking about seat height, the easiest way to work it out is simply just by test riding the bike and riding around the car park. Most local bike shops should let you do that. But the seat height, I say, is the distance from the pedal to where your butt actually sits. We want to make sure that's not too high, but we also want to make sure that it's not too low. A lot of this can be a domino effect that can come from the frame size. Finding the correct seat height will often be a bit of trial and error. You might try it a bit higher and you can't reach the pedals. You might try it a bit lower and then you're using different muscles. So once you work out where that perfect seat height is, then it should be the same on almost all of your bikes. So when we talk about the reach, we're talking about the distance from your bum to your hands, from contact point to contact point. If I was standing on this bike, which is a 48 centimeter, when I'm sitting on the seat, first of all, I can stand on the floor with the seat all the way up, clearly the wrong size, but even just thinking about the length here as well, if I'm pedaling along and I stand up, my knee is gonna hit the handlebars. It's clearly too small for me. Things like steering, now the handlebars are even closer, I'm more likely to hit my knee on there. I'm leaning very heavily over the front wheel as well. I'm not nice and comfortable and central on the bike as well. This one would clearly be the wrong size for me. You really want to test ride a new bike before you buy it to make sure that it's comfortable. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully you've worked out what type of bike that you're looking for. Hopefully this video has taught you the difference between road bikes, mountain bikes, and gravel bikes. If you would like more advice though, feel free to come in store and we'd be happy to help to find out exactly what bike you actually need. Thanks guys, see ya.